What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 129 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast on this Wednesday, December 10th, 2025. I'm your host, Zach Malum, but before we get started, please subscribe below. Follow all of my social accounts. Let's start things off in the world of baseball, as on Tuesday, the Los Angeles Dodgers agreed to a 3-year, $69 million deal with former Mets closer Edwin Diaz, the first real gut punch to the Mets offseason plans. And Edwin Diaz, a guy that was so loved by the Mets faithful, goes to LA, goes to the back-to-back champs for 3 years, $69 million, $23 million per year. And that's really a bit shocking in terms of the Mets and what they were willing to offer. 3 years, $66 million was their offer, with room to improve on it, according to Joel Sherman. But when you look at the Mets, that's just not enough in the end for Edwin Diaz, a guy that was so reliable, arguably the most reliable player on the team last year, a team that missed the postseason. They end up losing their star closer and their star in the bullpen, who goes to LA. And it's really shocking that $66 million was all they were willing to give Edwin Diaz. If it was so important to get Edwin Diaz back, how come you didn't give him a fourth year? I know he's 31 years old, turning 32 in this next year, but how do you not give Edwin Diaz a deserved deal with his performance a year ago? And yes, it's been a little bit shaky. It's been a little up and down year after year for Edwin Diaz's Mets career. Of course, he missed 2023 after an unbelievable 2022. 32 saves that year, a 1.31 ERA. Clearly the best closer in all of baseball that season, but then missed 2023 after the freak injury at the World Baseball Classic. Comes back for 2024 and doesn't look fully healthy just yet. 6-4 record with a 3.52 ERA, only 20 saves in 2024. A complete bounce back though in 2025. 6-3 with a 1.63 ERA and 28 of 31 save opportunities converted in that year. Just an unbelievable season by Edwin Diaz. And if you're the Dodgers, how do you not blame them for giving Edwin Diaz that type of contract, especially if you can afford it like the Dodgers can? A guy who had a 1.63 ERA and looked like he had one of the best years of his career. Of course, 2022 was just a different breed in terms of Edwin Diaz, but 2025, a monster in the back end of that bullpen, and the two-time back-to-back champs, they end up getting Edwin Diaz to really lock down the back end of their bullpen. A great move by the Dodgers, in my opinion. But if you're the Mets, what are you doing? What are the plans for this offseason? They end up getting Devin Williams with a 3-year, $51 million deal to probably be the setup man, but all of a sudden, that turns into Devin Williams being the closer. And you saw Devin Williams a season ago, just 18 saves on the year as he was stripped of the closer role for the New York Yankees. Really struggled for the Yankees. An ERA over 4 last year. Yes, a couple of years ago, you could look at Devin Williams and say, that guy is one of the best closers in baseball. But this is not the same Devin Williams, because he was in a market in Milwaukee where there was not a lot of pressure on him. He could go out, do his thing, and really not get catch a lot of slack for it. Now you're going into the city of New York, and it is a different breed here. When you're struggling as a closer, you cannot find anywhere to go. It's a very, very tough moment for Devin Williams. It was a season ago with the New York Yankees, and all of a sudden now he's thrust into the closer role for the New York Mets, who missed the postseason a season ago and have to bounce back with Juan Soto, who they paid God knows how many dollars a season ago to come to New York for the next 15 years. They are also under pressure to sign back Pete Alonso, who was a huge contributor to the Mets a season ago offensively. Then you look at Devin Williams now heading into this closer role for a team that doesn't have a bullpen set right now. And I understand that it's only December 10th and there's still a lot of time to go. But where is this offseason going for the New York Mets? Edwin Diaz is gone now. Pete Alonso looks like he might be gone, considering the Mets are not willing to give him the years that he's looking for right now. They're hesitant to give him more than 3 years. And the Red Sox are saying, yeah, we'll give it to him easily. He'll be a star first baseman for us. He'll DH for us if he needs to as well. And he'll be a very solid contributor to the Red Sox, who were in the playoffs a season ago. When you look at it, it's a very, very tough start to the offseason for the Mets in my mind. Devin Williams as the closer is just not good enough. Edwin Diaz was the guy. Edwin Diaz was loved by the Mets faithful, and they gave him basically away for pennies because they did not want to up the offer to 4 years. They were playing chicken on it. They were playing around way too much, in my mind, with Edwin Diaz. And the Dodgers came in, scooped him up, and said, yeah, we'll take him, and we'll win another World Series because of it. That's just what it is right now with Major League Baseball and the Los Angeles Dodgers. They're picking off guys left and right because teams are just not willing to pay the top amount of dollar, except, of course, for Juan Soto a season ago when he went to the New York Mets and went away from the New York Yankees. So it's just a very tough offseason right now, a very tough start to it. And where does it go from here? Edwin Diaz going to the Los Angeles Dodgers, a 3-year, $69 million deal. Mets offered 3 years, $66 million, but it wasn't good enough as the Dodgers get one of the best closers, if not the best, in all of baseball in the back end of their bullpen for next year. We have breaking news on the MudWatch, as according to multiple reports, the Baltimore Orioles are finalizing a 5-year, $155 million deal with former Mets first baseman Pete Alonso. And if you thought yesterday was a gut punch to the Mets offseason, losing out on their closer in Edwin Diaz, today is just a whole different world as Pete Alonso, who came back to New York for another season after a rough 2024, ends up getting $30 million a year in that 2-year contract with an opt-out clause heading into last season. Has one of the best seasons of his career, 272 average with 38 home runs, 126 RBIs. He also became the Mets all-time home runs leader, passing Darryl Strawberry in August. And this one is a real sour note to end the Wednesday of the winter meetings for the New York Mets, who really, where do you go from here? David Stearns loses out on two of the fan favorites out in Queens in Edwin Diaz and Pete Alonso. And how do you replace Pete Alonso now, who got 5 years, $155 million from the Orioles? Probably would have gotten the same from a couple of other teams, but ends up landing with Baltimore. When you look at it, the Mets just probably did not give him enough of an offer to really come back to Queens. When you look at what the Mets were thinking, 3 years was really where they were hesitant even on to go over that. 4 years, they were not willing to really go there, according to reports yesterday. We obviously are yet to find out what the Mets' final offer was to Pete Alonso, but 5 years was nowhere close to where it looked like the Mets were willing to go. And they end up passing up on Pete Alonso, a homegrown player, and really everything about the Mets was Pete Alonso for the last decade or so. A guy who was drafted by the Mets in 2016 in the second round and had an MLB leading 53 home runs in his rookie season. So he was a homegrown Met. The Mets loved him from the start. He was a huge power guy, a huge slugger for them. Yes, there were some down years there for Alonso, especially in 24, but this guy was a monster for the Mets in terms of his offensive production, and a guy who was a rookie of the year in 2019. When you look at it, how in the world is David Stearns going to bounce back after this one? It's going to be a long fan fest in the month of January when he has to go back to Queens, not with Juan Soto this time and the monster signing that he had a season ago, but losing this time Edwin Diaz and Pete Alonso. Just a stunning development. And the Mets, where do they go from here? David Stearns has a lot of questions to answer because I'm sure the media is going to be all over him for not giving Pete Alonso the contract that he deserved heading into this next season and the next 5 years or so, like Baltimore did. And then Edwin Diaz not matching up to the valuation that Edwin Diaz wanted, and Edwin Diaz passing things up, going to the Los Angeles Dodgers out west. What a wild couple of days for the New York Mets organization, and they have to bounce back. There's going to be a lot of answers that David Stearns is going to really need from questions here, it's a very sour couple of days for the New York Mets, and something that they have to move on from. But a lot of the Mets faithful not going to be too happy after Edwin Diaz goes to the Los Angeles Dodgers on Tuesday. Wednesday brings a whole new level as Pete Alonso, the former Mets first baseman, heading to Baltimore. 5 years, $155 million. What a stunning development we have in Queens. Let's shift things to football as the New York Jets were in action this week on Sunday at MetLife Stadium. They took on the Miami Dolphins, and it was all Dolphins in this one. 34-10 the final. The Jets end up falling to 3-10 on the year, but this game was over once the first quarter started because Miami completely dominated the first 10 minutes or so of this game. They really were unstoppable on the offensive end, and the Jets could not find anything on the offensive side of the ball. Of course, the loss of Tyrod Taylor due to injury in this game did not help. Of course, when you look at the Jets defense, they were put in bad scenarios, a couple of turnovers. One of them was Tyrod Taylor early in this game while he was still in it. And the Dolphins, in the blink of an eye, 3:39 left in the first quarter, and Jalen Wright runs in for a touchdown. It is 21-0 Miami. The Jets responded. Give them credit. Isaiah Williams, once again, is having a huge impact on special teams, but he was the only one that had a touchdown for the Jets on Sunday. They finished with 10 points, and the one touchdown was a 78-yard punt return with 20 seconds left in the first quarter by Isaiah Williams. When you look at the rest of the game, the Jets just did not have answers on offense. Brady Cook making his NFL debut in this one, and you can't really blame him too much for the Jets' performance. I mean, it's a guy who's coming in as the third-string quarterback for the Jets this year and is all of a sudden thrust into the backup role with Justin Fields ruled out earlier in the game, or ruled out for the game. Brady Cook in this one, 14 of 30, 163 passing yards, no touchdowns, but 2 interceptions. He also took 6 sacks in this game. Just a bad day overall at the office for the Jets on the offensive side of the ball. They didn't get anybody really involved. Mason Taylor was the top receiver on the day. 5 receptions, 51 receiving yards on 8 targets. John Mechie really wasn't too involved. 4 receptions, 34 yards on 8 targets. And then you look at A.D. Mitchell, who had 6 targets in this game, held to just 1 reception for 24 receiving yards. That's just not good enough. And Breece Hall, a guy who should be the face of this New York Jets offense, had 14 carries in this game for 43 rushing yards. He had 1 target for no receptions in this game. How in the world are you going to come back in a game if Breece Hall is not involved? He's one of the best, if not the best, offensive players on the offensive side of the ball for the Jets. Of course, without Garrett Wilson, it's Breece Hall. And how is Breece Hall not getting a reception in this game when you're down 20 for almost all of it? It just doesn't make sense to me. And when you look at the Jets, that's just the story of their season. It's just been a very iffy. They've won a couple of good games there, and it came down to defense and some good drives at the end of games on offense. But really, other than that, there's still a lot of room for improvement. And the Jets not having a quarterback really in this game, not having their top 2 quarterbacks in this game really hurt them. And Brady Cook, you can't put it really on him. He had some solid throws in the end for this game, but just not good enough against this Miami defense that has been so solid week after week for the last 5-6 weeks or so. Held opponents under 18 points in every single one of those games, except for the Baltimore game where they got trucked on Thursday Night Football. Other than that, it's been really, really solid by this Miami defense. They've been a solid unit and really have bounced back after a very rough start to this season. Tua Tagovailoa really couldn't be stopped, and he didn't need to do much in this game. 13 of 21, 127 passing yards, and a passing touchdown. The run game was really the difference in this one, just running it down the Jets' throats. 3 rushing touchdowns by 3 different players. Jalen Wright had the big touchdown on the day. 24 carries for 107 rushing yards and a touchdown. He also had his running mate Devon Achane go out in this one. 7 carries, 92 yards, and a touchdown. Went out in the first quarter after completely dominating the first quarter for the Dolphins offense. He goes out, and it was due to precaution in the end. They were already up 21-0, so Jalen Wright took the bulk of the carries on the day. Ollie Gordon also got himself involved. 5 carries, 17 rushing yards, as well as a rushing touchdown. So it really came down to the Jets defense was not good in this one from the start. The Jets offense, loss of quarterback in this game with Tyrod Taylor going out. You go to a rookie in Brady Cook and really got your answer for how this Jets game was going to go. 34-10 the final, and the Jets have to bounce back. They go on the road, but it's not going to be easy next week. They take on a very red-hot Jacksonville Jaguars team on Sunday at 1 o'clock, and we'll preview that game on Friday's episode. But the Jets fall to the Dolphins 34-10 at MetLife and have to bounce back as they go to Jacksonville next Sunday. Let's shift things to basketball as the New York Knicks were in action last night. Up in Toronto, they were for the NBA Cup quarterfinals. The Knicks win it 117-101, move to 17-7 on the year as Toronto drops to 15-11 on the season. A great performance by the Knicks stars in this one. Jalen Brunson was on fire. 35 points, 13 of 19 from the field. Also added 6 threes in this game. 3 rebounds, 4 assists as well, but it was Karl-Anthony Towns down low. Did not shoot the ball well in this game. Only 14 points, 4 of 11 shooting from the field, but 16 rebounds down low was a real difference in the game. They also got contributions all over the place from Josh Hart, who had 21 points in this game, 8 of 11 shooting, 4 threes as well, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. Also, Jordan Clarkson coming off the bench, 12 points in this game on 5 of 10 shooting. OG Anunoby not playing great right now since coming back from injury, but really had an impact on the defensive side of the ball, and that's where you really need it. You don't need too much scoring from him. He did have 13 points in this game, but the 6 rebounds, the 2 steals, the 2 blocks as well, that's what you're looking for from OG, and he ends up getting the job done. So the Knicks have a 4-game win streak going on right now where they're playing really good basketball, and they have to bring that into the semifinal matchup of the NBA Cup, which takes place on Saturday. They go out to Vegas to take on the Orlando Magic, a 5:30 start on Saturday, and the Knicks come into that game as 4.5-point favorites, total sitting at 223.5. Orlando, a team that has had the Knicks number so far this season. They've met 3 times, and you look at this 4th matchup for the Knicks and the Magic. The first 3, first couple of them, Orlando had the Knicks numbers. They went on the road to MSG, Orlando did, and ended up getting a big-time win on November 12th to halt the Knicks' 5-game win streak at the time. When you look at that game, 124-107 at MSG, Brunson had 31 points, but it was not enough at all as Orlando came out red-hot shooting the ball. You also look at a couple of weeks after that, about 10 days later, they went down to Orlando, the Knicks did, and it was not easy. Just a couple of games after Jalen Brunson sprained his ankle, and he ended up missing a couple of games just before that. It was his 2nd game back from injury, and the Knicks lost that game 133-121, despite Brunson's 33 points in that game. The Knicks, give them credit, they ended up beating Orlando just a couple of days ago on Sunday as they got a 106-100 win, a tough, gritty win with Jalen Brunson having 30 in that game. Can you tell the difference in any of these games? Jalen Brunson, though, has not a difference. He's been every single time he's been right there and putting up 30 balls every time they face off against the Magic. It's been a phenomenal season so far for Brunson, and he's looking to stay hot, and the Knicks looking to win their 5th in a row. Not going to be an easy game with Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero, all those guys really making it tough for the Knicks this season. But when you look at this game against Orlando, Knicks come in 4.5-point favorites, like I said. It's not going to be an easy game, but I give the Knicks a lot of credit for how they've played recently, and I think they're going to go into this game against Orlando feeling red hot and looking for a win and probably going to get it in Vegas, and really a big-time game it will be if they move on to the NBA Cup Finals. What a start to the tenure of Mike Brown if they're able to do that. That's going to be an interesting game. Let's finish things off today in the world of college basketball as number 23 St. John's hosted Ole Miss at MSG on Saturday, and what an ugly game for both of these teams. St. John's ends up getting the win 63-58. And it was an ugly game, like I said, for both of these teams when it came to shooting, because Ole Miss shot 36% from the field, 13% from three-point land. And on the other side, St. John's was not much better, 34% from the field and 18% from beyond the arc. 63-58, like I said, was the final score. And St. John's relied on their free throws to get them over the line. 25 of 35 in this game from the charity strike. And when you look at it, 71% is not good enough for this St. John's team. They have to score the ball a lot better than they did against Ole Miss. Give credit to both of these teams on defense. Played well, forced a lot of turnovers, but it was just an ugly game. 20 turnovers apiece. Just a real snooze fest of a game in this one. St. John's ends up finding a way to win it, and you got to give credit to the big man down low, Zuby Ejiofor, who had a big-time performance, even though it was an ugly one for the Johnnies. 15 points in this game, only shot 3 of 8 from the field, but 9 of 11 from the free throw line, and really stepped up for them. But the 8 blocks that he had down low was a real difference in the game. Also had 9 rebounds, with 6 of them being offensive rebounds. So Zuby Ejiofor did his work and is the clear reason why St. John's won this game. But it's a real warning sign for this St. John's team, because Ole Miss, not one of the best teams in the SEC this year in terms of their record, in terms of their roster. They're just not towards the level of a team like St. John's should be, and that's a worrying sign because they're heading into Big East play pretty soon. And of course, the defending Big East champs, regular season as well as postseason, they have to play a lot better than they have been. And these tough opponents, these tough Power 5 opponents that they've gone up against, they've won, yes, a couple of games against Baylor and Ole Miss, but it's been really ugly in those other 3 games, the 3 losses that they've had against top 25 teams. You go all the way back to earlier in the year against number 15 Alabama at the time, and they let up plenty of points at MSG in that one. Then they go into the Players Era Festival and lose 2 games at the Players Era to number 15 Iowa State at the time and number 21 Auburn at the time. So that's not a great sign for St. John's heading into some of their tougher games later in the season. Big East play is not going to be easy for them. These teams are looking to take St. John's down after what they were able to do against all of these teams a season ago. It's got to be a lot better for a team that expected to be a top 20, top 15, top 10 even team heading into this season. It's not been great for St. John's to start this year. And when you look at it, the 5 wins, 5-3 record, and yes, a win's a win against Ole Miss, but the top 25 opponent games that they've played in, they've not played great basketball, and they've not lived up to the expectations that they had to start this season. They have to really step things up in the next couple of games. An Iona team that's coming in is really not going to take it easy on them as they come down for Saturday's matchup, noon start at MSG, and we'll talk about that game, preview it on Friday's episode. But when you look at after that, DePaul and Big East play starts for the St. John's Red Storm. They have a couple of non-conference games after that against Kentucky at the CBS Sports Classic down in Atlanta, and then you have another non-conference game against Harvard. But after that, it's really the gauntlet of the St. John's schedule. When you look at Big East play, some tough games on the road at Georgetown, who's been good to start the year, at Butler as well, not an easy place to play. They also take on Providence in the midst of that, and at Creighton as well. So it's not going to be easy, and St. John's has to play better basketball than they have been. They have to really rely on those transfers. Ian Jackson, Bryce Hopkins, and also their returning players in Zuby Ejiofor down low. Really needs to rely on him to get the job done and be the leader of this team. He did so, and it was a huge reason, like I said, to beat Ole Miss the other day. But it's been ugly so far for St. John's this season, and a 5-3 record is not really where St. John's wanted to be this early. I know it's been some tough opponents. They don't expect to win every game, but their performance in each of those games, they kind of go up and down. And a 5-3 record, 22 in the nation right now, taking on Iona at the weekend, and we'll talk about that game on Friday's episode. But that will do it for episode 129 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast. Please subscribe below. I've been Zach Malum, and thanks for watching, and talk to you all on Friday.